The world is a tapestry of sound, and survival is the art of reading its threads. The sharp cry of a plover means a predator is moving in the tall grass. The subtle shift in the cicada's drone means the air is heavy with coming rain. A snap twig can mean the difference between a successful hunt and a fatal ambush. For these Homo sapiens of the Middle Stone Age, hearing is not a sense. It is a second pair of eyes. This is the brutal, fundamental truth of prehistoric life. Isha's son, Denio, lives in a world of profound and dangerous silence. She knows this now. The realization did not come as a slow dawn, but as a bolt of ice through the heart. She was digging for tubers. Her back to the boy, when the hiss cut through the air. A Porfado, coiled and angry, lay inches from Neo's foot. Isha froze, every muscle screaming, her warning cry caught in her throat for fear of startling the snake into striking. But Nio did not react. He sat in the red dust, utterly absorbed by the slow, deliberate march of a dung beetle. He did not hear the hiss. He did not see his mother's terror-stricken face. He felt only the sudden, violent yank as she snatched him away. A moment before the snake struck the space where he had been. Now she watches him constantly, and the world has transformed into a landscape of unheard threats. She sees the way the other mothers pull their own children a little closer when Nio is near. She sees the pity in their eyes, and beneath it, a cold flicker of fear. In a world of cooperative survival, a weak link is a threat to the entire chain. A boy who cannot hear a warning shouted across a riverbed is a boy who could be lost. A boy who cannot hear the approach of a leopard at night is a boy who could get not only himself killed, but the person sleeping next to him. This is the grim calculus of the clan. A community bound by the absolute necessity of mutual reliance. Her son, the child she loves with a fierceness that is its own force of nature, is becoming a liability. This is the emotional turning point for Isha. A shift from simple fear to a desperate, focused resolve. The clan's elder, a stooped woman named Farah, whose memory is a library of their hominid history, watches Isha and the boy. Her gaze is not unkind, but it is pragmatic. She has seen many children who did not thrive, taken by sickness, by predators, by accident. The world culls the weak. It is the only law that matters. Isha sees the question in Farah's eyes, the unspoken thought that hangs in the air around the evening fire. How long can they afford to protect a boy who is deaf to his own world? Isha feels the silent judgment of her clan, but it does not break her. It hardens her. Her mind, a product of the remarkable cognitive fluidity that defines her species, begins to race. If his ears are blind, she will find a way to make his eyes hear. She cannot silence the lion, so she must find a new way to tell him it is coming. Desperation is the mother of invention. Isha's mind, a crucible of fear and love, begins to forge a new tool, one not of stone, but of meaning. She starts with the most fundamental concept, danger. She takes Nio to the edge of a ravine, a place of obvious peril. She pushes a large rock over the edge and makes a sharp, slicing motion across her own throat with the side of her hand. She repeats the gesture, her face a mask of exaggerated fear, her eyes wide. She points to the chasm, then slices her throat again. Nio watches, his focus absolute. He does not understand death, but he understands the raw power of her fear. He flinches back from the edge. This is the first word. It is not spoken. It is performed. This is the dawn of symbolic behavior, born not in a cave painting, but in a mother's frantic gesture. The lexicon grows, one agonizing lesson at a time, to signify water. She mimics the act of scooping it into her mouth with a cupped hand. For food. She points to her mouth and makes a chewing motion. For come here, a beckoning curl of her fingers. Each concept is a piece of primitive technology as vital as a hand axe. She is not teaching him words. She is building a bridge into his silent world. The process is a testament to the power of kin selection, the evolutionary drive to protect one's own genetic future. But for Isha, it is simply an act of love. The other members of the clan watch this strange, silent dance with a mixture of pity and skepticism. The children mimic her gestures, turning them into a cruel game. The adults see it as the desperate ritual of a grieving mother, a refusal to accept the inevitable. Why waste so much energy on a single, flawed child? But Isha persists. She makes Anio watch her hands constantly. When a flock of birds suddenly takes flight, she taps him, points to the sky, and then makes the sign for danger. When a jackal links by their count, she repeats the lesson. Her hands are never still. They are constant, whispering commentary on the world he cannot hear. This is more than just a set of signals. It is an act of profound foresight. She is trying to arm him for a future she may not be in, to weave a net of knowledge that can catch him when she is gone. The challenge is immense. How do you teach the concept of a lion to a boy who has never heard its roar, only seen its picture in the dust? She crouches down, arches her back, and spreads her fingers like claws, baring her teeth in a silent snarl. Anio shrinks back, his eyes wide with a fear that is not learned, but instinctual. The image connects. Her hands have spoken of lions. Now the only question is whether he will be able to hear them when it truly matters. She has taught him the grammar of survival. Now, he must pass the test. The test comes without warning. On an afternoon of sleepy, sun-drenched calm, the clan is dispersed along a dry riverbed, a place of relative safety. The hunters are gone, and the women and children are digging for roots. Isha is working a short distance away from Anio, her focus on a stubborn patch of earth. It is then that she sees it, across the riverbed, half hidden by the shimmering heat haze. The lioness lifts her head from the tall grass. She is downwind, her scent mouse. She is not hunting, she is observing, a steady, impatient, fluid lethality, and her gaze is fixed on the small, solitary figure of Anio, the easiest, most oblivious target. There is no time for a scream. A shouted warning would nick the clan and perhaps trigger the lioness to charge. Isha's mind, honed by months of silent practice, does not hesitate. She catches Mira's eye. Her movements are sharp, precise, stripped of all ambiguity. First, the sign for danger, the hard, slicing motion across her throat. Anio freezes, his small digging stick dropping from his hand. His eyes lock onto hers. Then, she makes the sign for lion, the arched back. The bared teeth, the clawed hands. The boy's face pales. He understands. Finally, she gives the command. The slow, deliberate beckoning of her fingers. Come, here, now. Anio does not run. He moves with a low, controlled crawl, just as she has taught him, making himself small, unthreatening. He does not look back at the danger. He looks only at his mother's hands. The lioness, seeing her chance for an easy, surprise attack evaporate, lets out a low, frustrated growl. The sound alerts the rest of the clan, who now see the predator. They gather their children, grabbing stones and spears, forming a noisy, bristling wall of defiance. The moment is lost. The lioness, with a final, contemptuous flick of her tail, melts back into the grass. Anio reaches Isha and buries his face in her side, his small body trembling. The other women of the clan gather around, their faces no longer filled with pity, but with a stern, dawning respect. They have just witnessed a miracle. They have seen a whisper on the eyes, a silent warning that was as effective as any shout. This event is a form of exaptation, the co-opting of one system for a new purpose. The hands, designed for grasping and making tools, have become tools for grasping and making meaning. Tara, the old elder, comes and places a hand on his shoulder. She looks at the boy, then at Isha's hands, and for the first time, she sees not a liability, but a new kind of strength. The intelligence of one mother, driven by love, has forged a tool that could benefit them all. The gestures, once the private language of a desperate mother, start to be copied, a new thread woven into the social fabric of the clan. This innovation, invisible to future archaeology but essential to the story of anthropology, demonstrates that the first word was not a sound, but a sign. This is how a language is born. Not in a great council of hunters planning a kill, but in the desperate, loving space between a mother and her child. Isha's gestures were a survival tool, forged to protect one vulnerable boy. But in creating them, she stumbled upon one of the most powerful ideas in the universe, that a thing can be represented by a symbol. This cognitive leap from the concrete to the abstract is the foundation of all language, all art, all science. It is the moment we began to share not just warnings, but ideas. The silent words she created for NIO were the seeds from which a forest of communication would grow. A forest that now covers the entire globe. Her private lexicon, born of a mother's love, demonstrates that our capacity for abstract thought may not have been driven by the need to conquer the world, but by the far more primal need to care for one another. We learned to speak not so we could command, but so we could connect. Every time we use a word to comfort a child, to share a fear, or to express a love that feels too big for our own hearts, we are speaking in the language that Isha invented in the dust of a forgotten savannah. The echoes of the past are not always roars. Sometimes, they are whispers we can only see with our hearts. But what happens when the language we create is used to tell a lie?